welcome back to my channel. My name is Alya if you are new here. So as you can tell by the title, the topic I will be focusing on today is hair loss and possibly some unusual reasons that we might not always think cause our hair to fall out, but actually play very large roles. So I'm going to start out with some of the more basic reasons that most of us probably already know and work up to some of the factors that could actually be playing a really big role in your hair loss, and it may never have even crossed your mind. So the first and most common reason for hair loss is stress. And this probably comes to no surprise. Stress causes your hair follicles to go into a resting phase and stops the production of new strands from growing. Obviously, there is only so much you can do to avoid stressors in your life. Like if you have a really high stress level job, for instance, it's gonna be really hard to try and prevent this. Obviously, it's different for everyone, and this one isn't one that I have a lot of tips for, other than maybe start doing yoga or incorporating fitness into your life or even meditation. These are all ways to try and just calm your body down and release some of that stress. Reason number 2 is a lack of protein. It can be especially hard to get protein in your diet if you are vegetarian or vegan. A lot of times people who have diets such as these do experience more hair loss simply due to the fact that it's just harder to get enough protein in when you have that sort of diet. However, that's not to say only people who have a vegetarian or vegan diet are subject to this. Plenty of meat eaters just simply do not get enough protein in their diet, and instead they are just filling their stomachs with snacks and carbs and junk food, and that's just not sustainable. Protein is the main structural component in your hair, and a lack of protein in your diet can send your follicles into a resting phase and eventually it will cause fallout. The next reason that your hair could be falling out is if you are over processing your hair with either bleach or heat. Heat is obviously very damaging to your hair, and in my experience as someone with curly hair, the curlier your hair is, the more susceptible it is to getting heat damage. Not only does it take you longer to style your hair in the desired way that you want because of the curly texture, but curly hair is just a lot more brittle and sensitive by nature. And of course, bleach is very harsh on your hair, and if it is not done by someone who is really experienced, it can cause severe breakage. Now, some ways to combat this: obviously, if you are bleaching or over processing your hair, I highly recommend trying Olaplex. I use this once a week on my hair, and I have seen like a dramatic change in just the overall quality of my hair. The split ends have stopped like about 75% just right away. Like I trimmed my hair and I started using Olaplex, and I have very minimal damage. Obviously, I don't dye my hair, but I do heat style it about once a week. I wash my hair about every 5 days or so, and after that wash is usually when I may or may not straighten my hair. So if you are someone that really likes to style your hair quite a bit, I really recommend going longer between washes. And I know a lot of people say they can't do that, and it does take a couple weeks for your scalp to adjust because it is so used to you stripping the oils from it if you wash it every day or every other day that initially it will overproduce oil. But once it realizes that that is no longer going to be happening, you can stretch it out further and further. So for instance, this is day 4 hair, and it's really like not even greasy, it's a little flat on the top. The next factor in hair loss is hormonal imbalance. Now, this is something that I actually suffered from back in about 2014. I stopped taking the hormonal birth control pill after being on it for about 8 or so years. And when your body is so used to having something like that in its system, just cutting it cold turkey can leave you with really harsh side effects. And that's pretty much what initially happened to me. And this doesn't happen to everyone. I have plenty of friends who stopped taking birth control and they had no issue. For me, it for some reason spiked the DHT levels in my system. If you don't know what DHT is, it is a derivative of the male hormone testosterone. And for whatever reason, it essentially attacks and kills off your hair follicles by shrinking them to a point where they can no longer survive. Now, there are ways to naturally combat this. Stimulate blood flow to your scalp by giving yourself a massage 5 minutes a day, whether it is in the shower or just flipping your head upside down. This is really beneficial. Your hair needs extra blood flow to produce hair growth, and if it is already being attacked by DHT, it is suffering even more than normally would be. Eating foods such as kale, spinach, carrots, watermelon, mangoes, bananas, These are all really important to help fight off and block DHT in your system. And a pro tip I have for this is if you are someone that does not like the taste of your greens, you can blend all of these together in a smoothie, and fruits such as mango will pretty much override any of that taste from the kale or the spinach, and it'll pretty much just taste like a fruit smoothie that's green. Another thing that you can do is drink green tea. Green tea is really beneficial, as well as the herbal supplement saw palmetto. This is actually what I was taking when I was suffering from this DHT overload in my system. I would take saw palmetto every day, and it definitely does help. The next reason you could potentially be losing hair is a condition called telogen effluvium. In other words, this is when your body experiences a severe trauma. This could be anything from childbirth to a major surgery, an infection, or even malnutrition. This can cause your hair to shift from the growing and resting phase to a shedding phase all at once. And this isn't something that's necessarily going to happen right away. So it could be a reason that never even crossed your mind, but it does take about 6 weeks to 3 months after a high stress event takes place that could cause the shedding. Even things such as a really big move, or perhaps a divorce, or something going on in your personal life can even spark this to happen. So even if you haven't been in like a car accident or something like that, just take a minute and think about if there's anything else in your life that has really caused you a lot of stress or pain. This could definitely be a reason for that. Now, unfortunately, some women can experience this without any real triggers or stress factors, and it can be a chronic condition that can last years. Also, if you have recently gone on the hormonal birth control pill or any form of hormonal birth control, this can also trigger telogen effluvium by putting your hair in the resting phase for too long. So let's talk about vitamin deficiencies. This one is really overlooked, and I feel like it's a really obvious one. If you are deficient in iron, zinc, vitamin B3, vitamin C, or vitamin D, this could be a major reason why you're experiencing hair loss. A deficiency in any of these vitamins is linked to hair loss, and a perfect example that I actually want to throw out there is I currently live in Ireland, and we don't get a lot of sunlight here, especially in the winter months, and even in the summer. It's just generally a very kind of gray, overcast environment. And due to that, people do not get a lot of vitamin D in their system. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but just from my personal observation of comparing the male baldness here as opposed to a sunnier climate or even in the United States, men do seem to prematurely bald way faster here. In fact, I've noticed a lot of guys already experiencing baldness in their 20s, which is pretty soon. A lot of it can be genetics, but I also think that the lack of vitamin D is playing a huge role in that. This, coupled with other deficiencies from just a lack of overall nutrition in your diet, is definitely going to set you down the path for hair loss. So at the bare minimum, I really recommend taking a multivitamin every day, but I also try to take vitamin D supplements as well as taking my multi. Next is extensions. Now, there are obviously different variations of extensions, but if you are using sew-ins and glue-ins, those are definitely going to be a lot harder on your scalp just because of the tightness to your head and the fact that they are there pretty much permanently until you have somebody remove them. That's causing a lot of strain on your head. But even tape-ins and clip-ins can also cause damage to your hair. Now, I love hair extensions. It's definitely no secret I wear clip-in extensions, and I have a video on using tape-in extensions as well. I feel like if it's done in moderation, you're not going to really cause any permanent damage to your hair. For instance, I only wear hair extensions if I am going to be going out on the weekend, so maybe like a Friday or a Saturday night, but I definitely don't wear them throughout the week. And with tape-ins, they're not as harsh on your head because they're much lighter weight and they're not right directly on your scalp. You have them applied a little bit farther down, but when you take them out, you will notice a lot of shedding, and that is just because your hair also is going through a shedding cycle every day. But because it's stuck in the tape, it's not necessarily coming out in the shower until you take out the tape-ins. But obviously, if you're someone who religiously does glue-ins, sew-ins, tape-ins, or wears clip-ins every day, you are going to be causing long-term damage to your hair follicles. Other factors such as tight buns, ponytails, or really tight braids will definitely cause damage as well. It could cause receding hairlines, just overall breakage of your hair. And actually, all of this has a name, and it is actually called truncation alopecia, which is essentially the hair follicle weakening and falling out after long-term strain. Another one which is so silly, but actually does cause quite a bit of damage to your hair is improper hair brushing. And I see so many of my friends doing this, and it is my biggest pet peeve. It drives me absolutely nuts. But when you brush your hair, start at the bottom. It is not rocket science, ladies. Do not start with the brush up here and proceed to tear all the way down the shaft of your hair. You're gonna pull it out and you're gonna cause split ends. Just don't be lazy. I know you wanna like hurry up and brush and finish brushing your hair. Start at the bottom and work your way up. And if you have really curly hair, use a detangler. This is like one of the easiest ways to prevent hair loss and damage. Just brush your hair properly. Something else that a lot of people don't think to do is exfoliate their scalp. Now this is something that everybody should do. It kind of just depends on how frequently you need to do it. So for example, if you are someone that uses a lot of hair products, whether you're a curly girl and you're using, you know, different leave-ins and gels and things like that, or even if you have straight hair but you're spraying like a volumizing spray on your roots, or just really any kind of product that is going directly on your scalp, this is going to cause buildup. Also, some people just naturally produce more sebum in their scalp, and that can obviously cause buildup as well. One of the biggest causes of buildup is actually our beloved dry shampoo. Now, unfortunately, dry shampoo actually really is not good for your scalp. It definitely clogs your follicles, and you can even feel and see the buildup on your scalp even after just like one use or a couple hours in. You can definitely feel it there, so you know that that is causing buildup. So if you're noticing your hair looking dull, or your scalp is flaky or itchy, or you can literally just see the crap in your hair, then it's definitely time to exfoliate. I will link down below different recommendations for clarifying shampoos and different things to break up that buildup and exfoliate your scalp. Another really common reason for hair loss is actually using the wrong shampoos and conditioners. And what I mean by this is shampoos and conditioners that have a lot of dangerous chemicals. Now, I feel like a lot of people are just really lazy when it comes to doing any sort of research on the chemicals on the backs of your shampoo bottles. And we tend to just go to the drugstore and pick up the first one that we see, or whatever is on sale, or you know, what one is gonna smell the best, but that is definitely the wrong way to go about it. Now, my motto is, if I can't pronounce the ingredient, it's probably bad. And I always make sure to Google any of the ingredients on the back that I don't recognize. Some of these things are actually really toxic. So most of us know that sulfates are bad, but a lot of us don't actually know what sulfates are. A sulfate is actually a degreaser that is used primarily in the engines of cars. So should you be putting a chemical used in a vehicle on your scalp? No. The next one is fragrances. Now, we are always drawn to something that is going to make us smell pretty. Unfortunately, these fragrances, if they are not natural, can actually cause a hormone imbalance in your body, which can lead to hair loss. So look for products that have natural fragrances, such as tea tree oil or lavender or something like that. Or even purchase a shampoo and conditioner that has no fragrance, and you can add your own essential oils to it. So they still smell great, but you're also getting the added benefits of these different essential oils, and you can pick one specifically for healthy hair and scalp, and that's just much more beneficial in the end. Another ingredient that is not good for your hair is sodium chloride, aka table salt, essentially. You ever notice when you go in the ocean and after your hair has been in the salt water for too long, it starts to just feel really dry and brittle and nasty? Well, unfortunately, sodium chloride dries out your hair because it's salt. So do you want to be putting salt in your hair? I don't think so. Another one we hear about all the time is parabens. The reason why parabens are so dangerous is they are known to cause breast cancer, and unfortunately, anything that you are putting onto your head when you are shampooing and conditioning, it's being absorbed into your scalp and therefore absorbed into your bloodstream. So you're basically filling your body with all of these unnecessary and dangerous chemicals. And most people are probably gonna say, oh, well, you know, everything causes cancer nowadays. Well, yeah, and you're gonna get cancer if you are using products with tons of chemicals and eating a lot of processed foods that have chemicals. You're exposed to chemicals just going outside by pollution, but let's not add insult to injury here. There are reasons why the average person who lives an unhealthy life dies at a young age from a disease, as opposed to someone who takes more precautions to be healthier. Now, if you want to die at 60 from cancer, then go right ahead, but I don't want to. Propylene glycol is bad. It is just an irritant to your skin, and any irritation that could cause itching or inflammation is obviously going to cause your hair to fall out. So avoid that because it is also an ugly name. Another chemical is diethanolamine, and basically what this chemical does is it destroys keratin, which is a key component in your hair. I'll link some hair brands down below in the description box for you. One really good one is Briogeo. They're known for having a really clean hairline. So definitely one I recommend, and obviously clean hair products will be a little bit more expensive, but in the long term, it's really worth it. All right, so for the grand finale, this one may come as a shock to you, but mold can play a huge part in hair loss. And I know this because it has happened to me not once, but twice. Now, it's something that never even crossed my mind. When you think of mold, you're just like, meh, like whatever, like as long as it's obviously not to excess growing all over the place, you're not really thinking of it, especially if you can't see it, right? Well, unfortunately, mold is actually really toxic, and long-term exposure to mold can cause a variety of health problems, one being hair loss. It can also cause nose and throat problems, fatigue, headaches, and even cancer. In some cases, mold can even be fatal. There are plenty of cases out there if you just happen to even do a little research. One of the scariest ones I heard actually was somebody's baby dying because they did not know that there was actually mold in their ventilation, and the baby's crib was right under this vent that was just blowing all of these mold spores. And what happens is when you breathe in these spores, especially for a long period of time, they end up going into your lungs, and mold can actually grow in your lungs and in your body. And obviously this is going to get into your bloodstream, and if it's toxic mold such as black mold, it can definitely be fatal. And unfortunately for this family, they had no idea, and the mold actually ended up killing their baby. So it's really serious, especially if you live in a climate that can be humid or damp. You're definitely at higher risk of having mold in your house. Like I said before, mold is not always visible. A lot of times it can be behind a wall. You could have a broken pipe, or there could be a leak back there that you have no idea, and this is going to be the perfect place for mold to start growing. Also, places like behind shower tiles and bathrooms, if you don't have proper ventilation in your bathroom and it's always fogging up after your shower and you're just like closing the door after, that's a perfect place for mold to start growing. Now, like I said, I've learned this the hard way. The first time was when I was living in California in a really old studio apartment that had no air conditioning, and there was mold growing behind the wall in the shower, and I experienced severe hair loss. Like, I had bald patches, I have pictures and everything. It was really traumatizing to not know why your hair is falling out. You know, you're going to the doctor, you're getting blood work done, you're going to see specialists, nobody can figure out what's wrong with you. And one day I was just doing a ton of research, and I found this forum of people talking about how mold had caused their hair to fall out. And I was thinking, okay, well, I don't have like the sickness symptoms, but my boyfriend at the time was having really bad like congestion and throat problems and just headaches all the time. And we were both just always really tired. So I actually had somebody come in and test the air quality, and it turns out that we actually had really high levels of toxic mold in our apartment. And so shortly after we moved out, we actually saw them tearing out the wall to rebuild the entire apartment. And I'm not even exaggerating, the entire wall behind my shower was just black mold. And I actually tried to sue. Unfortunately, no lawyers in San Diego would take my case because toxic mold apparently is so common there that they're only taking cases where children are affected, or somebody potentially has died, or you have gotten cancer. Me, apparently, going practically bald wasn't important enough. Now, the second time this happened to me was actually here in Dublin, and we had gone out of town for about a month and a half and obviously shut everything up because, you know, it rains a lot and you don't want to leave any of your windows open when you're out of town. And mold had actually grown behind the big curtain that we had in our bedroom. Not as severe as the mold in San Diego, but the second that I got back, within like a couple days, I just noticed that my hair was coming out in handfuls, like clumps. I could go like this, and I would have 2 fistfuls of hair. That's not even being dramatic at all. I would take a shower, and the drain would just clog instantly. Like, it would take 2 hands to take the hair out of the shower. That's how much hair I would lose, and I'd be shedding it everywhere. And for some reason, it didn't even occur to me that it could be mold. I just thought that maybe I was under a lot of stress. And my boyfriend had remembered me telling him this story when I had been in San Diego, so he started like inspecting the whole apartment. And he's the one that found the mold, and we like bleached the shit out of everything. We had somebody come and test the air quality again. And by that point they said there was no like mold spores in the air, but the air quality was still poor, and they recommended us, you know, having some cross ventilation. So we would open our back slider patio and the front slider patio. We lived on the 5th floor, so we could get like a good cross breeze going and keep the air clean. So anyway, moral of the story is, even if you don't see the mold, it could still be there. And if you have tried all of these other things on my list and you can cross all of them off, definitely I would recommend either hiring someone to test your air quality, or you can buy mold testing kits on Amazon, and I will try to link some down below for you. But it is definitely like the most overlooked one on the list. So that is it for today's video. I know it was really kind of long and wordy, but there was just so much information that I needed to share with you guys in order to really get my point across and be able to educate people who just don't have any idea that some of these things are really bad for you. So if you want to see more health related videos in the future, if you think that I should start a series, comment down below and give this video a thumbs up on your way out. Thank you so much for watching.